I can't see you, so you just tell me.
We are live, Gilbert.
All right. Okay. Well, we're live now. Welcome everyone to the this mind work, and we're going to start now. We start with joining the palms and bowing first. Recitation of the four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self nature. I vow to cut off endless vexations of self nature. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma of self nature. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood of self nature. We are going to talk about a preface to the Platform Sutra that was written by this master, Qisong, from the 12th century and early 12th century. And um, it is one in which it's called Encomium of the Platform Sutra, of the Dharma treasure of the great master, the sixth patriarch. And is this word encomium is a word that means great praise, like very high level praise of a particular work. And you can see in this, it is this high level work, um, and he is very much respectful to Hui Ning and thankful to Hui Ning for doing this. And you could say in this encomium, it is a lesson in itself as to what one is going to read in the Platform Sutra. And I thought that it was such an important listing of what's in the Platform Sutra, kind of as if you were to hear a particular work, a symphony. There is an overture to a symphony which runs through all the themes of what one's going to hear in the symphony. And then when that happens, then one has a feel for what they're going to get. Here, this is a very elaborate overture to the Platform Sutra, which really encompasses the Mahayana teaching. Here, this is now at the where we're at with the sixth patriarch of Chan, and going through all of the patriarchs to Hui Ning. The Mahayana school of the uh, Chinese Chan tradition has become very perfected in its way. And when we look at where it started from in arriving around the second century with the Asta Shasrika Prajnaparamita Sutra, all of this is then presented in a way in which reflects what was there, and this let's say progression of Chinese Chan Buddhism in terms of how Chinese Chan Buddhism is to be practiced and to be understood. So let's start here, and we'll go through this, and we'll see. We're not going to finish it today, that's for sure. But I wanted to give you a flavor for it so that you get an appreciation for the work itself. So it starts to praise is to announce, to open the sutra, and widely announced. The Platform Sutra is that by which a perfected man revealed his mind. And for those who understand Chinese, written in English script are the words there that you can also follow along with. Perfected man refers to the sixth patriarch, just as in the text. What mind, the wondrous mind transmitted by the Buddhas. How great this mind, the initial source of all transformations, yet it remains ever pure. And this is a part that's very interesting because it's saying ekayana, just mind, and it's saying it remains pure. But we go, well, what about the impurities in the world, the things that happen in this world? How are those pure? And it is to stop us at some point, and we're comparing something that's happening in a dream and confusing what's in the dream for mind itself. Mind itself is pure in nature. The dream itself may appear sacred or profane, but in fact, there is no sacred or profane because it's just a dream within mind with no independent substance to it. And so when one sees mind as it really is, then there is a liberation there. It doesn't mean that one at that point then just says, I am liberated, I'm gone, because there's no I to go. It is just simply mind with a understanding in mind of an obligation to return back to the dream to awaken those that are stuck in the dream. Who are stuck in the dream? Not sentient beings, but mind itself, a portion of mind is stuck in this dream and needs to be awakened. So let's continue. Um, Whether ordinary person or sage, whether hidden or revealed, there is nowhere that it does not exist. There is nowhere that it does not exist of itself. So here again, it's showing that mind is the creator of everything. All phenomena is created by the mind as well. The sage is said to be wise, and the ordinary person is said to be deluded. Deluded is to be transformed uh, into ignorance. Very interesting. Deluded means to be transformed into ignorance. This is something that when we look at this and we see where things come from, we understand that originally the primordial Buddha, there was no fault. There was nothing here in terms of ignorance, but somewhere there was a transformation in which ignorance appeared in mind. Now, it didn't cover the entire mind. It only covered a relatively small portion. It to even talk about how big this um, cosmos is. Let's say cosmos is created by the mind. It cannot compare to something that is infinite. So no matter how big the cosmos is, or collective cosmos is, what now is called the multiverse, um, it pales in dimensions to infinity. And so everything that is produced by this ignorance is produced by mind, but and contained within mind. So we continue on. Um, and where it's talking about the sage is said to be wise and the ordinary person deluded, it's clarifying this and saying this delusion is this delusion and ignorance. There isn't really somebody that is wise. One person asked, what is the sage like truth? And the master said, there's nothing sage like to it. And so the person scratching their heads, what do you mean there's nothing sage like to it? Because to create something that is sagely versus something that is unsagely is creating a duality. But there is no duality. Mind sees everything clearly. It can perceive what appears to be sage-like and what appears to be ignorance, but it doesn't make a distinction between the two in terms of uh, creating a duality there. Say, I want to be sage-like creates a duality that you are unsage-like and you want to move towards something. It was this transformation that caused the duality that wasn't there in the first place. That is the ignorance of the mind, is this creation of duality that's there. Um, Although transformed and returning differ, a wondrous mind is one. And there's so much here, it's hard for us to go to the next line. Even me going at this pace right now, I've already gone racing past so much important material. But when we look at this and when we stop and say, wait, what is he saying here? He's saying that that although transformed and returning differ, so what is transformed? Remember, he's referring back and saying that the ignorance was that which was transformed, and this returning is the mind returning to its natural state before this ignorance, which is all that's happening. All of our practice is based on returning the mind to mind, returning the mind to the purity of the mind before ignorance appeared. That's the difference. The transformation occurred when there was a creation of duality due to the ignorance that popped up in mind. Well, how did it get there? No one can say. It's one of the, I believe, the 10 unanswerable questions that was presented to the Buddha. So in saying that, differed, the wondrous mind is one. Again, this is ekayana, that's just simply one. But at this point, we say that this one even is not a one, it returns to the source. In the beginning was Shakyamuni Buddha, who transmitted it to the mind, to Mahakasyapa. And this is the story of twirling the flower, and Mahakasyapa, the Buddha twirled a flower in his hand, and Mahakasyapa saw the flower. Has to pass for a flower, um, and Mahakasyapa just simply smiled. He understood this was a mind-to-mind transmission. So there are those who talk about, oh, Chan wasn't there in the beginning. Chan was some afterthought, some ideas, No, it wasn't. It was right from the very beginning, right from the very lecture that the Buddha taught on the 12 nidanas of ignorance. It was there already. And then it was displayed actually of the demonstration of mind by the twirling of the flower. 33 generations of Mahakasyapa's transmission transmitted to the great mirror. So it's saying after 33, if you're following the line of succession all the way to Hui Ning, then he's saying at that point, this mind-to-mind transmission had reached Hui Ning. And sorry, lost my place for a moment. The Sixth Patriarch's posthumous title is Great Master, Great Mirror, saying, so when he was there, it is at that point where he's referred to a great mirror. And the mind is just in this way where we see things, and this mirror is a great mirror that enables all of these projections upon it, and it's clear all of these projections are part of mind, and they return to mind. Something very interesting lately I've been talking about, because it's often said that there is this great ocean and all phenomena appears like waves up above the ocean. But it isn't really quite that way. I think it's better for us to understand that this mere surface is there. There's projections upon it, but there's nothing protruding. But underneath, there is a current of mind which gives the appearance, just the appearance, not the form, but just the appearance of waves. But nevertheless, they're subsumed into mind itself. They're not rising above mind. It isn't in this way because originally that's a mere surface. It is still, but nevertheless, it enables things to arise within it. So all of that's happening, but it's not there in the same dimension as mine. It appears there, but but it is only phenomenal. It's not the true mind, simply just projections. In the first place, the ways of speaking of mind are varied. So when we talk about what is mind, there's so many ways. What do you call minds? Fundamentally, there are names that are identical, even though the reality varies. Um, Fundamentally, there are many meanings, even though the mind is one. It is called mind of flesh and blood. It is called mind of dependent cognition. It is called mind of correlation and activating. It is called mind of firm reality. Since mental states are often referred to as mind, there is an even greater variety of usage. Now, he's not saying which ones are right, he's saying how they're used in this way. One of the things that I think that's very important, and for all of you to remember, is do not confuse mind with mental states that arise in mind. It isn't in this way. It's the same as you say going to an ice cream shop and saying you wanted vanilla ice cream, and then you saw Rocky Road and say, "Oh, I changed my mind. I want Rocky Road." That's not mind. Mind enables all of that to appear, but you cannot change your mind. Change it for what? Everything is created by the mind, appearing in mind. That idea of changing your mind is a mental state arising of creating a preference of one thing over another. That is a duality. That is not the real mind. It is the pivotal point in the Shurangama Sutra when Ananda believed that he finally got it, and he understood that this clean and perfected and purified uh, um, ego was mind. And that's when the Buddha rebuked him and said, "That's not your mind. You don't have a separate mind. Even if you think it's a purified mind, it's not purified in that way. Mind is naturally pure, void of duality, void of the sacred and profane. We have to begin to see things and subsume this absorption into mind, including your consciousness, including what you think is you, has to give up. It has to to finish. But we don't understand that. So we're fighting tooth and nail to maintain our self-identity, our egocentrism, our self-centeredness that we cling to, thinking that this will become illuminated. It will not become enlightened at all. Illumination of it is just merely to see it clearly as a mere puff of smoke. Since mental states are often referred to as mind, even greater variety of usage. These are cases where the names are identical, even though the reality varies. It is called mind of suchness. It is called mind of generation, mind of extinction. It is called mind of afflictions. It is called mind of Bodhi. All of these things are used to describe mind. When we talk about mind of afflictions, again, this is a mental state. All of these are mental states if we create a duality of it and say, this mind is a such mind, this is not a such mind. They're not in that way. When we say it is a mind of Bodhi, of enlightenment, it still has an idea of a duality in comparison to the mind that is not enlightened. But it's just mind. There's not a duality there. Even when we talk about bodhisattvas, when we talk about it in the demonstration of the inconceivable state of Buddhahood Sutra, the Buddha was asking Manjusri if he had attained the state of a bodhisattva, and he said, I've attained that state. If you've attained the state of Buddhahood, the Buddha said, haven't I said before that the state of Buddhahood is not a true state of Buddhahood? It is not something to attain. And he said, then I have not attained the state of a bodhisattva. Because we cannot make that distinction. The notion or concept of a bodhisattva is something that appears in the world, and it's there, but you cannot go out and search for a bodhisattva in some kind of a form in the absolute. It appears in the absolute subject to samsara, and moves into samsara provisionally to remove the ignorance that is causing these appearances, but it is not of samsara. So when we look at it, we have to begin to understand in this way, in the same thing, that the Buddha cannot be known by his 32 marks, because that appearance is only appearance body that is within samsara, not within um, um, the mind itself. The Buddha would not have a need for a body that looks human-like, nor can we say that the Buddha looks like us. That would be the height of vanity, wouldn't it be? That we create a Buddha in our image. We have to turn the mind's eye inward, to look at this and see this differently. See that the mind is not a thing, is not a conception. You cannot conceptualize about the Buddha and say, oh, the Buddha is this way, or it's dressed in these vestments from 2,500 years ago. This is not the Buddha. This is an idealized artist rendition of what they believe to be the Buddha, or that is what we use as a form of respect to the Buddha, so that we can practice um, in concert with the Buddha in terms of this, not something that is absolutely real. These are cases where meanings are many, even though the mind is one. Again, it comes back to the refrain of the mind is one, this ekayana. And again, when we talk about this one, we talk about it in a way where it is not a one, where everything is there. It is that door, that portal that enables everything, including the one, to be absorbed. Of meanings, there is the meaning of enlightenment, the meaning of non-enlightenment. Of minds, there's the true mind and the false mind. All of these are just different distinctions of the correct mind. Of course, the mind referred to in the Platform Sutra is of two meanings: the meaning of enlightenment and of the two minds, and the true mind. In the past, when the sage Shakyamuni was about to secrete himself in nirvana, he commanded Kasyapa to transmit the essential Dharma outside the teachings. So we're saying outside. What does it mean outside the teachings? Does it mean that the teachings were wrong? No, because he was talking about these meanings of enlightenment, of non-enlightenment. He's talking about the the true mind, and that which moves towards this true mind, but it moves towards the true mind in samsara provisionally, because it can't be outside of it. If it was outside of it, it would already be the Buddha mind, which it is, but it doesn't understand that it's already the Buddha mind. Those of you who are listening right now, you're using Buddha mind to listen. Outside of this mind that you're using right now, there's no other mind. There's not a higher mind. There's not a perfected mind. There's not an awakened mind that is separate from an unawakened mind. It is just simply to see through the illusion, this dream, and remain with this clarity of the mind. One still, due to causes and conditions, will still be here. It's not there like you get enlightened and you get a choice where you go, oh, okay, Gilbert, you just became enlightened. Oh, thank you, thank you. Now you have a choice. You can go to nirvana. Yes, okay. Or you could come back and awaken the others. Which one do you choose? You know? That's a tough one, right? If I go to nirvana, or if you want, you can go to the Pure Land. This is so difficult to make up my mind. No, it's all mind. It doesn't matter. If you chose to go to nirvana, you're still going to be in mind. If you chose to go to the Pure Land, you're still going to be in mind. If you go to hell, you're going to be in mind. Disanpusa chooses to go to hell. Why? It's all mind. It doesn't matter in that way. What matters is to stop the ignorance within mind. It is a dis-ease in mind that mind seeks to resolve. There is no permanent hell, nor is there any permanent heaven, nor permanent Pure Land for that matter. It's all mind. It's temporary. When we see that, we understand all of this is mind. We begin to think outside the box, like somebody that's a quantum physicist or quantum mechanics thinks outside the box. They work on things that they can't completely prove mathematically, at least initially, but they pause it and think there could be these, that time could be this way, time can be warped, time can be bent. Einstein, but it's hard for us to figure those things out. But us Buddhists, we posit that all the time in terms of how things are. We have to be able to realize mind, not try to realize a perfected mind in samsara and say, Scout's promise, I will do better. I will help the lady across the street. I promise that I won't take alcohol or do bad things. Oh, sorry. But it's that way, that it's just mine. So let's continue. The reason I'm bringing these things up is because you have to understand his statements here are filled with training and teaching, and he's just skimming over the surface, but going very deep in the skimming. Um, So when he was talking about outside the teachings, because our school talks about that a transmission of mind outside words and phrases, the words and phrases can help us to practice and to realize mind, but they're really a crutch at some point. If we simply just lean on them all the time, we cannot go forward with our training. In the past, when the sage, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I read that part. Let's see. Thinking that people then were stagnating in traces and would forget to return. Now, we can't even go on to the next part till we know what is he talking about here. Thinking that people then were stagnating in traces. What do you think that means, stagnating in traces? all of the Chan masters talk about this. Stagnating in traces, meaning that you're caught up in the habitual patterns of past lives, of this present life, of all of these things. You're clinging to them, thinking that they're real, and as a result, you just keep bringing them up and bringing them up and repeating, and you're lost in terms of you're stagnating in these traces. Why stagnating? Because all it buys you is that you're going to come back again to live, but in ignorance. And so you die, live and die, live and die, live and die. No, I'm happy this moment, but joy will not last. We don't understand that. Master Shen Yang said that we should practice uh, um, understanding we only have a finite amount of breaths to take. We don't know when we're going to die. We truly don't. So we have to make each breath be important, make it worth it. I earned that breath rather than indulging in yourself, your pity, your greed, hatred, ignorance. You didn't earn that breath. Earn it. Make a difference in this samsaric world. So stagnating in traces and would forget to return to the fundamental. They forget to return. They die and then they forget to be born again. When I say born, I mean born into the practice again. So they just keep going up and down the six realms. He deeply wanted those of later times to behold the fundamental and correct the implications. So, what are the implications? We correct the implications means we're not buying into samsara and saying the object here is to become rich. The object here is to have a beautiful spouse and beautiful children and a wonderful, wonderful life with no cares, nothing. How many of you lives are exactly like that? Right? So how can you come to this promised land like that? It is a promised land. If you come back here, which you will, I promise you that you're going to be going up in the and down the ladder of joy and suffering. If you don't remember why you were here from the last time. So you have to program in this lifetime to come back to remove the suffering. If any of you are suffering, I too suffer. If any of you have family that's suffering, I suffer. If any of you have enemies that are suffering, I suffer. I will suffer until the last sentient being is awakened. It is in this way that we remember the fundamental and correct the implications. What are the implications? Implications if I fall into samsara and and continue to create ignorant appearances, then I will just fall into ignorance again, lifetime after lifetime. So we got to remember the fundamental. Therefore, does the Nirvana Sutra say, I have an insurpassable correct Dharma, which I bestow entirely on Mahakasyapa, entrusting Mahakasyapa to take that forward and passing this not by words and phrases, but from the heart to understand Who is suffering? To understand that it matters to mind. The way of heaven resides in change. The way of earth resides in selection. The way of the sages resides in the essential. The essential is a term for the most wondrous. The essential is the way of the sages and is therefore the hinge pin of the gate of the Dharma Dhatu. I'll read the whole sentence, but we'll go back to it. The meeting of the immeasurable doctrines, the unembellished original vehicle of Mahayana. Again, this unembellished, it doesn't have to be embellished. It is the ekayana, just mind. And this essential is referring to the self nature or your true nature. So when it's talking about this, it's saying, and it's giving these praise to this most wondrous, which is the true nature that we all have. And it doesn't matter whether it's from the heaven or earth or to the sages, all are encompassed by the self nature of mind. And so this essence is important. I've been talking about what even predated Mahayana in the Chinese philosophy of Tiyong, Tiyong. And if somebody in Chinese wants to put a note to flash on there about Tiyong in Chinese, so some of you who speak Chinese may not know my pronunciation. For those of you, there we go. And so this is, thank you, Esther. Qiyong is this essence function. And here he's referring to the essence of the mind. And the function of it is constantly returning to samsara to carry out the function of the essence of this purity of the mind that somehow in this dream world was lost and replaced, transformed by ignorance. What was it transformed into? Into form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. In this way, it that is the problem, is this ignorance. But who created the ignorance? Mind created the ignorance. How did it do it? We don't know. Why did it happen? We don't know. We just know that it happened. And we, all of us, are the janitors that need to clean up the mess. We, not as corporal bodies, but we as mind, as ambassadors of mind under this flesh, there's mind. Not the ego, not yourself, but mind. That mind then uses function to demonstrate the essence in the samsara so as to awaken the sleeping Buddhas that are trapped in this illusory world. Sorry, I lost my place here for a second.
You were in the third paragraph.
Yeah. It works. How could the lotus? So then we get to the part where it says, how could the Lotus Sutra not say you should understand that wondrous Dharma is the essential secret of the Buddhas. When we talk about this essential secret, it's referring to the esoteric, the secret meaning, not the esoteric school of Buddhism. That's a separate kind of a reference. Anytime when I talk about it, unless I say esoteric school, esoteric to me is this true meaning beyond words and phrases, which is the absolute itself. And so he's referring to that and saying this wondrous Dharma is the essential secret of the Buddhas. How could the flower garland sutra, that's a Vatamsaka sutra, not but say, with a bit of expedient means, quickly does one achieve Bodhi? Because what it's saying is, if one practices these expedient means, even if they practice a little bit of it, they will achieve Bodhi, because even if it's just a spark, that spark will continue to grow. Even if it's just a seed of Bodhi, then it is in this way. It is what Master Sheng said, to vow to deliver others before oneself is the initial generation, that spark of the Bodhi heart in a Bodhisattva. It comes from this spark there. And this is why the Flower Adornment Sutra says this, because it is in this that causes and conditions never fail. It is why the Diamond Sutra says that even if there were all the Ganges River sands were Ganges rivers, and all of those collective sands were treasure chests given to the poor, that merit would not be equal to reciting 4 lines of this sutra to someone else. Why? No matter what, how many treasure chests, no matter how many sentient beings you give a treasure chest to, they're still going to die. They're just going to be rich when they die, but they're still going to die. But Mahayana gives hope. Mahayana gives direction. It gives the spark so that one can practice in the proper way. It sees this as a generation of the Bodhi heart. This is what we're doing, what we're trying to pass on to others. This passing of this flame is this passing of this Bodhi heart. The essential then, how great is its benefit in the way of the sages? So it's saying this essential, the essential then is how incredibly powerful, how great it is that you have this opportunity to be listening to this Dharma today. Therefore, the central doctrine of the Platform Sutra is the honoring of the essential of mind. So this central doctrine of the Platform Sutra, what the Platform Sutra is talking about, is honoring the essential of the mind. What is essential of the mind? Is this interest in removing the suffering of sentient beings, of awakening all sentient beings and delivering them from ignorance and suffering that's there. This is the essential. That's the prime directive here in samsara, as how the Bodhi works, how the Buddha mind works here, because this is the essence of the Buddha mind applied to where it's at. So the essence of the Buddha mind isn't simply to rest in some kind of a sambhogakaya, this reward body, and just to be blissful and say, wow, I'm so blissful all the time. How could how could it be blissful when it has it still hears the suffering, even if it's just a dream. It would want to have an interest in waking up that portion of the mind that is caught in the suffering. The mind is as if bright, as if dark, as if empty, as if numinous, uncountable, as if serene, as if awakened. It possesses things and is without things. It possesses things because they all belong to mind. Everything then is absorbed back into mind. Even the dream goes back into mind. It is in this way that it will return to to that. There is a one of the vignettes in the Fantasia, the Walt Disney movie from the 1940. It was called Night on Bald Mountain, where they're using some music by Mussorgsky, Night on Bald Mountain, and showing all of these demons that were harming the sentient beings and going and going and going until finally a bell rings and it's the dawning, and all of these beings, evil beings, receded back into the earth, but they're receding back into mind, created by the mind. We don't understand that. But if we understand that they were issued forth from the mind due to ignorance, then we know how to resolve the problems within this world. And we know that fundamentally, these demons, these ghosts, uh, evil spirits, they too are sentient beings. They're deluded sentient beings. We have to deliver them too. It's not that we save everybody from these goblins. The goblins are sentient beings too. So all sentient beings must be delivered. It is a different way of looking at things. No, it's like Qisong Pusa going to hell, and people would say, wow, what a crummy assignment that is, going to hell to try to help the people there. No, it is an incredible exhibition of unbridled compassion to go there, to help those. Who else needs the help more than hell dwellers that are there and stuck for such a long time with no hope at all? We see things differently. We don't see this good and bad in this way. Only we see the disturbances in mind. Say it is a single thing, and it originally extends over 10,000 things. Say it is 10,000 things, and it originally unified in a single thing. It is just this way. One sutra says if the things expand to the calculation, let's say, of 1,000,000 miles wide, mind expands to 1,000,000 miles wide. If it drops down to the size of an atom, mind drops down to the size of an atom. It is in this way that the mind is ever expansive and contractive in accordance with causes and conditions, but it's because it does not dwell in either the 1,000,000 mile wide object or the atom that is able to do that. This we cannot understand. We need to contemplate this to be able to break through. Such descriptions imply that the mind is conceivable, but it can neither be thought of or conceived of. So here it's saying of these things, and we're talking about these things, it's inconceivable how mind can be in this way. It is not the million-mile wide object or the atom. Those are just things that appear within it. But because of that, it enables the mind to be able to do that. But if you try to conceive of that and hold on to that, then you've lost it completely. The world calls it the mysterious understanding. They call it the divine comprehension. They call it beyond relativities. They call it silent essence. They call it the obscure penetration. Transcend all of them, do away with all of them, do away with them, and away again. And I really love the way he speaks, because this is where I found myself writing in this way to emphasize a point. Say, do away with them, and then do away with them again. Don't give up doing away with these conceptual notions. Doing away with these conceptual notions without doing away with them, then the mind is free. Okay. Were it not ultimately attained by solitary transmission from the perfected man, who could sincerely embody it, inferring he explicates it, and there is nowhere he cannot go. Because in this way, and seeing in this transmission of Hui Ne, it enables him to go. What it's saying is, find it again. There's nowhere he cannot go. What Master Ling Chi said, you're free to come and go as you please. The Tathagata, Tathagata, the thus come one and the thus gone one, is the same thing. They're saying that this is the essence of the mind, is the liberation, is it's not no longer tied down to the samsaric world or any kinds of means of conceptual thinking. It's ceased through the conceptual thinking. Probing, he resolves it, and there is nowhere he is not correct. This is what is called the lion's roar. So Master Ling Chi said he speaks, and the the little greenhorn monks' heads explode, because the lion's roar can stand before anything, because it is only the truth that's issued from it. And in this way, it is not afraid of espousing the Dharma, because how it espouses the Dharma is correct. So even the lion's roar doesn't have to roar so loud. It just needs to have that capability of doing that. And those who challenge it, then they get really corrected. Let's just put it that way. Applying it to realization of nature, his views are perfectly intimate. These are such wonderful words that he's talking about. So applying it to realization of nature. So realization of nature is knowing how everything comes into being. What's the fundamental? It's created by the mind. What's the axiom of the fundamental is that it's from pratika samapada, causes and conditions, that that is there, the 12 nidanas. So when there's this realization of the nature, not the mental or intellectual understanding of it, but actually a realization that comes without words and phrases, his views are perfectly intimate. He would know what you're thinking. He would know what you've done in the past. He would know what's going to happen to you in the future. When you stand before a great master, you stand before them naked. There's not anything that they cannot see about you, or at least you feel that way. But it is this ability to be intimate with everything, not just human sentient beings, but the tiniest of insects. As the Shurgama Sutra says, that can you care for the gadfly or the mosquito? Can you be intimate with them? Intimate means to know them, to know how they are, to see how they're doing. And it's very interesting. Today, I was talking about this to give you a feeling of this intimacy. I was sharing this with one of my friends, and a while back, I had dropped something sweet on my kitchen floor, and I forgot to pick it up. Well, the next morning, there were thousands of ants all over it. It wasn't a jelly donut, um, but it was whatever it was very sweet, and there was so like a line, like a veritable freeway going to there, maybe like a 10-lane freeway heading to the suite. They're all going, this is great, oh my gosh, you know. Now, in the past, I might have been cruel or was cruel, and I might get out a can of insect spray and spray them all and say, that'll keep them from coming in. But I saw them, and I saw that they had this need for this food. Although I don't want them in my house eating food in this way, um, what I did was I simply cleaned up that which was sweet that had dropped onto the floor. And I left. About a half an hour later, when I returned, not one ant could be seen. They had all gone. In that moment, I was intimate with these ants. And I saw them in that way. There was a time when I was at an airport and waiting for the luggage to come. And one of the greatest joys in life is, will your luggage come, and when is it going to come? And in what shape? But the carousel began to go, and it dropped off about 20 luggage, and then that was it, and it stopped. And everybody's wondering what's happening. And so they all dissipate. And they start looking at the other carousels, perhaps to see their bag is on the carousel. But they all disappear, just like the ants. And then the light started flashing, bang, bang, bang. And they all came back again, like the ants. And I felt an intimacy with all of the people there because they had an interest in picking up their bag. And so they're all there now crowding around again. And then the carousel stopped again. And lo and behold, they all went their way again. And there was an empty carousel with nobody there but me waiting for it to start up again. Very, very strange. But I had an intimacy because I understood their mentality was they're not going to get a treat. They weren't going to get their bag there, so why should they stand there? It is this kind of a perfect intimacy with whatever you encounter here, whether it's from the nature or the nature of people, that we have this kind of a way. And it says applying it to cultivation. So we understand that. We understand how people think, how people work. We apply it in the present moment to our opening awareness, but our opening awareness for the benefit of being able to use this awareness and understanding of sentient beings in order to transmit the Dharma to them. His proceedings are perfectly correct. So whatever he says or does, it's correct. He's not, there. You wouldn't find him standing in front of the Dunkin' Donuts booth at the airport. Those days for me are long gone. I swear. But he may be helping somebody to do whatever needs to be done. Um, Applying it to the elevation of virtue and discrimination of illusions, the true and the false are easily manifested. So, applying it to um, the elevation of virtue and discrimination of illusion, saying that one sees in this way and says what's true and what's false, what do we practice, what do we not practice, and we are abiding in this virtue, not playing like we're abiding in this virtue, but simply demonstrating it. Then the understanding of true and false are easily manifested. Applying it to the transcendence of the world, the enlightenment of a Buddha is quickly achieved. So as we look at everything, we see these fundamental truths. What? Everything is created by the mind. Everything is created by pratika samappada. You plant a melon seed and you get a melon fruit. You plant a weed and you get a weed. It is very clear. We understand in this way. This is applying to transcend the world. If we let go of these things, if we see the world as not being real, but just simply being a projection, the world can be transcended. The enlightenment of a Buddha is quickly achieved. Applying it to saving the world, saving the world. What are we going to save the world from? From ourselves. Um, the invenerating defilements are easily ended. Inve- uh, enervating, I guess is a word, which is like that which takes out the essence of us, our gut, are easily ended. This is the central doctrine of the Platform Sutra, which may be disseminated throughout the world without opposition from anyone. So this is saying this is the way it is. It is the thusness of mind and how we see things. We're going to stop there. Hopefully, see, well, I'm on page 27 on the one I'm reading from. So we're going to have to try to remember to go back to this part here. And I will entertain questions now. So thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of that.
You have a question from Jake, Gilbert.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I only have myself on the screen, so I'm still trying to figure out how to get through. So go ahead, Jake. Thank you, Santa. Go ahead, Jake.
Hi, Gilbert.
Hello.
I really like this lecture. I've been reading passages from the Platform Sutra before meditating, and I found that that's been uh, really beneficial. I wanted to ask a little bit about the essence, because something that sort of struck me from this talk is a question about how arhats don't follow the Bodhisattva path. Like, how does this sort of if there's like an essence and a function, and the function is sort of compassion, how is it that arhats can not sort of demonstrate that in the same way that bodhisattvas do? And maybe that's a artificial contrast, but it seems like this is sort of a contrast in the Diamond Sutra, for example, between uh, the different paths, I guess.
It's it's a really interesting question, one that I have posited many times. It's a legitimate question in terms of doing this and saying, you know, uh, why can't they see through this? And I think it's more doctrinal than perhaps actual. In this way, is that as we distinguish between an arhat and um, a bodhisattva, the question is not so much that an arhat is lesser, it is that the training based on Theravada only takes you part of the way. And so the Mahayanas distinguish that. And remember, before they started this, there was no Mahayana, there was no bodhisattvas other than the bodhisattva um, being of the Buddha before he became enlightened. He was referred to as a bodhisattva. But the Mahayana took that example and ran with it and said, you know, the Buddha is not the only Buddha. All the mind of all sentient beings is also a Buddha. Therefore, they all have Buddha nature. They all have these bodhisattva qualities, and so it isn't necessarily that arhats can't see it. It's just simply that the training of the Theravadan school in the eyes of Mahayanas stopped too quickly, and they finished at that point, and they were saying that's what the Buddha taught, and this is the elders, and so that's where it's at, and this is where you go. But when you think about it logically, you go, what's the point of that? What's the point of getting to the other side and leaving everybody else there? Even if you were an arhat, wouldn't you think that you'd be going, it's lonely over here, And you go to your arhat associates in wherever the the arhats gather up, and they go, how's your family? What do you mean, how's my family? Well, yeah, well, they're not here, you know. Don't you miss them? No, I'm an arhat. I don't have any cravings. I don't have anything, I'm not of that world, so I don't something's missing with that, right? Something's not quite right. Something isn't there. Like if you do it and you're one and done, right? You're out, you're gone, and you're no longer, it doesn't make sense. You're either a Theravadan or a Mahayana in this way if you hold on to that kind of an idea. But if you let go of that idea and just simply see that this is a progression that doesn't finish as being an arhat. And when one begins to practice in this kind of a Theravadan step by step by step by step, what we talk about, the gradual method, it's okay, you can get there, but it's going to take you a lot longer, and you're going to have to break through that artificial ceiling of being an arhat. You have to see that the natural progression would be to be called a bodhisattva, and a bodhisattva term is not a term um, of of the essence of mind. It's a fabricated one with a fabricated bodhisattva that is coming into the world. Bodhisattvas don't look. How does a bodhisattva look? No. But it is this, and your question is leads to a whole other lecture in terms of this. Is very incredible, because when you look at it and you're seeing that it isn't the step by step, but if one can see clearly ekayana, just mind, the thusness of mind, how one um, uh, is no longer a one, but just mind, and that there's no separability, that in that moment, it pierces through the idea of what we perceive to be this reality of this world, cuts a slit like Master Han Shan piercing the sky. And then we see that this world and everything about it is an illusion. The only thing that's not an illusion is that those pieces of slumbering Buddha within sentient beings. But the sentient beings, they are not uh, uh, they do not have a permanent essence to them, but mind does. So when we see this, we understand if they have a permanent essence, the only thing that has a permanent essence is the Buddha mind. Apart from that, there is no other essence. So if one is to say they're an arhat, then how can they be a Buddha if they're separate, if there's a duality there? So it didn't go far enough to see the reality of things, the actuality. And that's why this master, he's doing so deep in terms of this to get you to see this. It's not easy what he's presenting, as is the same with Hui Ning, but he's preparing you, laying this table and saying, look at how this is. And you can feel his genuine interest and in trying to prepare you to do this and trying to show how precious this teaching is by going, we've got to do better than just an arhat, a shravak, and a sound hearer. Because if we don't, what good is it, right? So the question is not one should ask a Mahayanas, but the question should be asked to the Theravadins, what then, right? What then? If he becomes an arhat, he leaves, then we're all left to our own a troubling world without coming back in, trying to awaken. Wouldn't it be better and more profitable in terms of production here for those who have achieved a realization to make a vow to come back into samsara? Now you're coming back in here, whether you're a Buddha, excuse me, a Bodhisattva or a Buddha, you're gonna, if you come back in, you're going to maintain a body, an appearance body here, a Nirmanakaya. Now the Buddha, such as Amitabha Buddha, who has not made an appearance here, we don't really know what Amitabha looks like, right? We can, the artist can paint a rendition of what Amitabha looks like, but that's simply a rendition of an artist anthropomorphizing a Buddha. How can that be? We can venerate Amitabha in this way and give respect to him, but don't hold on to the idea that there's an Amitabha Buddha that looks like that. I'm not being blasphemous. I'm being practical and in concert with Mahayana teaching. It's not that I maintain an altar, you know, and I have many statues there, but they represent what's in the heart of all of us. And this respect I give is so that all will bring forth this kind of a realization. Just this mind is the Buddha mind. So it's a really good question, but that's where I see it from, is that it didn't go far enough. I don't believe there's a place where all the arhats just congregate. What are they doing there? It wouldn't make sense, right? What are they doing? And they don't even take their family, much less anybody else with them. They just leave. Doesn't make sense. The reason I follow Chan is because as of everything I've studied in my life, which I've studied quite a bit of different philosophical and other things there, other than devil worshiping or whatever, I believe that Chinese Chan Buddhism makes the most sense of everything that I've read. And along those lines, I can also include, the Tibetan as well in terms of those. Maybe we see things a little differently in terms of some of the the bodhisattvas and things, but the essence is still the same. So I thought you left, Suzanne. Anyway, I'm watching you. So, any case, that's the answer to that question. I hope that solved it. And someday, we can have a discussion on this further. It's kind of you really opened up, a great question to discuss. Okay, any other questions? And I can't see you, so
Renee.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you for deep and straightforward teaching today. My question is actually, it's just like we often hear that we should vow to help others reach enlightenment first. So today you mention it again. It sounds like this noble self-sacrificing, but the real idea behind it's actually no self. It's about experiencing no self through that action, or maybe realizing that everything is fundamentally inseparable. Do you think? Do you agree?
Our idea of like no self is a tricky one. And when we talk about no self, that means no egocentrism, no individual. But the mind itself has its own self nature, which is collectively all Buddha mind, wherever Buddha mind is found. So long as there's a sentient being, then there is the self nature of mind. So even though we should not cling to the idea of our own ego, this very mind that asks the question is the Buddha mind. And when we understand that, then when we see sentient beings, we are not clouded and we're not in competition with them. We are not um, seeing them in a discriminating way whatsoever, neither sacred nor profane. We just understand that they all belong to samsara because of ignorance. And that we want to remove this ignorance so that these uh, sentient beings will realize their own mind, which is the realization of the Buddha mind. And in this way, we see it, but it's not, this Buddha mind is not a mind as defined in samsara. This is where you have to really contemplate, take yourself outside this box. I had talked about this quantum physicists or quantum mechanics, thinking outside the box. Take yourself outside the box of samsara. The realizations of mind is the ability to cut a hole in the sky and to let reality pour through, or the absorption of the self nature of mind into the self nature of mind, not you. You cannot escape here because you're simply a projection. But the mind that you have, it can. It's confined in this tiny little sardine box we call this earth. or the cosmos, even same thing. But when it's liberated, there's no restrictions whatsoever. It's completely free, infinite, but inconceivable. We cannot use our mind to do that. We have to be fearless to be able to let go completely of what we perceive to be mind. When we try to define the mind, we can't get there. So, in what you're doing, you have to understand, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because we don't cling to the body. The baby, this mind that you have, this embryo of the Tathagata Garbha, nevertheless, is a fully grown mind, fully grown Buddha. We just don't realize that. So that'll give you something to think about, okay?
Thank you so much.
Angela had a question, I saw.
Yes, Angela's question is, could Master Gilbert share about Qi or Qigong and how it helps us with awakening our mind and realizing the Chan mind?
The thing about qi being some energy, and qigong, the energy work, it helps in different ways. I'm not saying that you have to study qigong to be able to do it, because there's a lot of people who study qigong for the wrong reasons. It can be something that's very therapeutic health. You can use it for healing, you can use it for self-realization to a certain extent. But what it does is it enables one to develop a concentration, to be able to do the things that the Theravadins use. I don't want to just give the Theravadins a bad rap, because they have the ability to develop certain concentration methods. The problem is that they kind of cling to those and can't make a transition into a deeper samadhi. For the most part, I'm not saying everyone, but that seems to be a trouble with quite a few of them that I've talked to. But you develop a concentration, which is good. You also develop the understanding of a couple of things. One of them is how powerful the mind is, and the other one is having faith in what cannot be seen. And this is something that's very interesting. I used to demonstrate moving people without touching them. And like, for insight, I did a thing at a New Year's Eve, a Chinese New Year's Eve program, where I had 8 of my students lined up facing the other way, and I was moving them like as if there was a string attached to them, pulling them, pushing them, moving them, shaking them. They could not see what I was doing, but the audience could see. And so there was a faith there to say, there's something more to this, that we cannot see. So it's hard for us to make that jive with our understanding of physics and everything else, and to see how that works. But this ability to harness this kind of a power of the chi, it helps us. When we transition into Buddhism, we put that to the side as not as a high priority, as much as realizing the purpose of mind, the purpose of existence, the purpose of what we do, which is this uh, idea of generating the Bodhi heart, which is paramount to anything that the Qigong can manifest. Although there's some great things that can be manifested, some positive things such as healing, as I mentioned, but it is this transition into understanding that we're not practicing for ourself or our self-aggrandizement or to develop parlor tricks. We're practicing for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so it is beneficial. It can help people. It can help them understand what's going on when they're sitting and their body starts to move or they have aches in their body. And sometimes I will tell people if they have a certain blockage in their body or feeling heavy to drop the chi to their lower dandian, and the sha dandian, and put it there so that they can take the pressure off their body. This understanding of why they have that is beneficial. It's not a prerequisite, but it can be beneficial if one puts down the idea of the ego. And unfortunately, that isn't a major emphasis in a lot of Qigong practitioners, and some of the masters as well. But it's important for us to know that. So it can be an opiate as well. You can go on a power trip with it, but it's something that I knew after practicing it that something was still missing. And that thing that was missing was wisdom. But it can be beneficial and helpful, but not in and of itself. So that's the answer. Next question. I'll go a little bit longer with some questions.
Ideal.
Vadim?
Hi.
Oh.
Hi, Gilbert. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the lecture, Master. I was studying Bodhidharma's teachings, and when I was reading about right view, it of course pushed me all the way to the beginning, and I started thinking about the Four Noble Truths and the first truth of suffering. And today's lecture actually brought a question to mind, and maybe it's inconceivable again. Maybe, I don't know, I just quote unquote maybe asking a stupid question, but if only mind exists, then what exactly is suffering? Can you help me understand this question? It may not even have an answer, so I just want to first understand the question.
Say the question again so I'm clear about it.
If only mind exists, right? Then what exactly is suffering?
A dream. Total dream. It is something like if you're in a dream, let's say tonight you go into a dream and there's this purple people eater that is chasing after you, and you raise up a fear in your body because of that. When you awaken, hopefully the purple people eater wouldn't be on your bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just simply a dream that you were suffering from this fear of running away from this illusory being. This world that we're in, it too is that way. It's a dream. It's hard for us to do that. It's hard for us to wake up. The us is not the body. It's not Gilbert. It's not Ideal. It is simply mind that's trapped in this dream and can't wake up. But as I've mentioned many times, if you see somebody that that's caught up in a dream and thrashing around, you would want to wake them up. And people say, well, why is that? Because it still matters to them, if they're suffering in a dream. It matters to mind. It matters, because the mind is non-dual. It's inseparable. So just like Villa McCritty was sick, and the reason he was sick was because the sentient beings are sick, so he was at ill ease because of that. Because mind is capable of perceiving all of the suffering of all sentient beings, irregardless of where they're at, irregardless of past, present, and future. The mind will still feel at a dis-ease because of that. So it is in this way that we see it, and then we understand how that works. You just have to keep banging away at that, banging away. It's like you're hitting this iron wall with a roof tile, but you hit it until finally one day it will crush, it'll collapse. It will happen. You just have to continually hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. Never stop hitting it. Stay awake. Understand you're walking in a dream. When you're walking in a dream, it was like when I saw the people at the airport, and they were just like ants. I could feel their behavior. I could feel their minds. I could feel how they just dispersed, just like the ants did. There was an intimacy there, and a non-discrimination that's there, that one can feel these things. And we feel that. It doesn't matter, if you don't know the person, if a person's suffering, if they drop something, if an old lady's there and she needs help, you help them. If it's an old man, you help them. Whoever it is that needs help, you see roadkill on the road, I do recitation for them. No, because I will deliver them in different lifetimes. I asked the four heavenly guardians or heavenly kings to protect everybody at night, and Guanggong and Wei To Bodhisattva. And you know what else I do? I tell them, if you don't deliver me first, I will deliver you. It is in this way how we do things. And it's not some kind of a haughty way of looking at things. It is sincerity, that their mind is no different than this mind that is asking them for protection as well. It's just this way. Just keep playing with it. You're on the right path by asking these questions.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Okay. All right. One last question. No one?
Angela had a follow-up.
Go ahead.
So it sounds like cultivating qi in your dantian does help with developing samadhi for wisdom. Thank you, Gilbert.
Yeah, not really. I mean, it can help you maintain a balance. If it works for you, great. What I tend to do, and let me kind of elaborate on that as the last part, is that when I talk about resting the mind in mind, I personally do something very similar to what she's saying, which is that I put my attention on the lower dantian, and this is a point like 3 inches or 3 fingers below your navel, and to the women it's generally at the navel itself. But I bring my attention there so that I don't have a rise of this kind of out of control consciousness or discrimination or reaching or attachment. I simply bring everything back there. If the function is, for instance, for me to pick up a glass, then I can pick up the glass with it. I'm aware of that. I'm aware I'm holding it to show you that. But since it's not the time for me to drink, I can put it down and I will say, I will wait till after I finish and I will have some more of that. It doesn't matter to me whether there's lemonade in there, non-sugar, but or tea or whatever is there is fine. And there's a non-discrimination there. As I put it down, everything just resets back to sinking. So the mind begins to sink, and it just sinks down. And when we need to bring it up, just like the same thing as utilizing the chi to do anything, it's stored there, just like the storehouse, of the consciousness or the Yalaya Vijnana. Everything is simply stored there and resting until it's needed, and then it comes up and can interact. But when it's not there, then I use the mental impression of sinking it down to rest. So it's always just resting. So it's not percolating in the skull and creating thoughts that are unnecessary, these akusala thoughts that are attaching, it's not doing that. It is just simply letting these thoughts just slide through as needed. And in this way, this is what we call wu yin, not thinking. So when we use it in this way, it's this way, but there's no particular magic to doing it, but it's not a bad practice. And if you're feeling that in what you're doing, then I would recommend you to continue to do that. Just simply to rest the mind and mind, letting it rest in the lower dantian is what I do, and it just becomes natural after a while. I don't let the thoughts rise up. When they rise up, then you get all nervous, your heart starts pumping, all sorts of other things happen. But when you just keep the mind very relaxed, it doesn't do that. I've been testing myself with I test myself with my blood pressure every day. And what's interesting is that you're supposed to test your resting blood pressure, but in testing, I can drop the points sometimes as much as 20 um, points, by calming down. But I noticed something that was very interesting. If I did not think, if I kept the mind blank, the number would go dramatically down. If I thought about anything, even though my body's not moving, but I was generating thoughts, my blood pressure would become elevated. So it's very interesting in this way. So that physiologically, there's some truth in that as well. Okay. All right. Got off a little bit different, but if it works for you, Angela, so be it. Do it like I'm mentioning. You'll be way ahead of the curve by doing it that way. So it'll work for you. Okay.
Angela says, thank you, Gilbert, for clarifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We went longer. I apologize for the interruption. I'll probably have another time where I'll be out of the area. So, but I'll try to make this all work for you. So, thank you all for listening in. I didn't get a chance to be able to see who was attending, but I hope we got some new faces in here as well. But I'm very happy to present this to you. And if you can leave or, show Santa if you want me to continue with this next week, I'll be glad to continue this. I think it's something that's very valuable. Okay. And so kind of make your comments known now, or even a thumbs up or something. Thank you very much for you checking in. Yeah, now I can see the word people clicking on. So good. I really think that this Encomium is very, very powerful, and I think it's worth it. And so again, thank you all. I will continue next week to work on this. To some of you, it might be quite a bit to chew on, but you'll get there. For everyone that's there, those I'll see the Chicago syndicate. That's coming. Waiting to see you guys. Thank you, Renee, Spencer, all of you. I think that's something that I think that we'll see some of you soon, and if not, we'll see you next Monday. I will be giving a class. So good night to you all.